somewhere behind everything. You just have to dig.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ROE's Inspiring Panel. Today we're going to be talking about the future of advertising and commercial production and how extended reality is changing our environments by using AI to help drastically reduce the cost of content production. Today we've gathered three pioneers of this industry who are going to continue to push boundaries of what is possible in this space. So if I can introduce Steve Giralt from Garage, Lewis Smithingham from Monks, and Chris Bird from Kubrick. And welcome to everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit more about how we create and produce broadcast content. And each panelist is going to bring a unique, and I think together we're quite a strange group with a lot of experience behind us. I suppose the first thing that I really wanted to talk about is to Steve. Steve, we've just seen a teaser of some of the amazing work that the Garage has produced. Your work became a real sensation during social media, during the pandemic across social media. Can you talk a little bit and share some of your experiences about how using XR and AI helped tech the filmmaking process?
Sure, thank you, and hello everybody out there. Yeah, I mean, we're constantly finding new tools, finding ways to break those tools, push those tools to the limit, and this is the next tool that we've been playing with, right? Like as far as how do we leverage LED technology, Unreal Engine, all that, along with our brand needs and their timelines and their schedules and everything like that to create content efficiently and also push the creative boundaries of the concepts as well, right? So I think it's constantly a balancing act between how do we push the creative and also bring production efficiencies into the workflow. And for us, obviously, we do lots of food and beverage. So for us, it's like getting the real reflections behind the liquids and the talent interacting in a real space, and not having to fly all over the world or shoot ice cream in the middle of the summer outside or things like that. It's honestly a huge difference in the amount of control we have on the end product that we shoot for somebody.
Amazing. And I think that links really well into Chris and Kubrick. I know you guys have been working together a lot with the advancements of AI that Kubrick have been working. Do you want to tell us, Chris, a little bit more about what the Garage and Kubrick have been doing together?
Yeah,
and you've got no voice.
I'm the one with the no voice.
Maybe a short version.
As an innovative content creation studio, the Garage in New York, Steve's studio, they're all about leveraging the latest technology where necessary, but also the old tools. So I've seen his studio. He's got like lots of gear lying around, and he picks out what he needs in order to get the shot, because it's all about getting the shot in the can. But at the end of the day, he's got a certain amount of time to deliver a creative solution for his customer. And so his use of Kubrick for him has been a bit of a moment for him, because he can spend his time conceptualizing in Kubrick using an AI generation tool to come up with content, ideas, present them to the customer, and then fairly quickly turn those ideas into realistic three-dimensional backgrounds for his shoots. So, of course, his product shots are all about the product. So on camera, he's got to get that product crisp and clean, but the backgrounds can be good enough. And for him, Kubrick works 90% of the time to get what he needs in the can.
Amazing, thank you. And Lewis, I know that you've worked on several groundbreaking projects that have combined, groundbreaking, I do like that term, that combine creativity and technology. How do you envision AI and XR working together to not only create engaging content, but also to reduce production costs for large brands?
Yeah, I remember this had to have been in 2014. A buddy of mine called me up and he was like, "You've got to come down and see this mayonnaise commercial. We're shooting in Huntington Beach right now." And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "No, like, trust me, you're going to come." And we go down, and it was The Mandalorian. And I sit in there, I walk in, and it's this fucking giant wall, and like I'm like, I want to shoot cars here. I want to shoot cars here. And it's this idea that, and particularly as a person who worked in 3D, a lot of the technology around A-frames and B-frames and using that to be able to get, if you shoot at 60 frames a second, you're printing at 30, you can get 2 shots in a single shot.
Yeah.
And as you start using different cameras at the same time and you're breaking off the different areas, you can get 20 shots. If you shoot at HFR, you can get even more. And so it's this idea of commercial production, the finances are getting constantly squeezed. We're running into spaces where you have to deliver to hundreds of different formats, hundreds of different backgrounds. We work with a major car manufacturer out here where we're having to personalize backgrounds at tremendous scale. And XR is an opportunity to reduce costs for that scale, but also engage with better storytelling for individuals. And we've used that as well, LED walls specifically, in a lot of cases, to be able to drive heavy-duty personalization. You talked about it briefly, like when you talk about selling a kitchen appliance. Well, what does a kitchen look like in San Diego, California? What does a kitchen look like in Brooklyn? What does a kitchen look like in Germany? All those different things affect how people buy. And so we use LED to drive performance. We use XR to bring that into a space. And it's funny, that level of scale hasn't been possible before because you'd have to have hundreds of shoots.
Amazing. Very interesting, covering lots of different areas. Steve, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the robotics side. So you are using robotics a lot more to get precise in-sync camera movements. How has the sort of XR and LED tech helped you amplify this provision? And I think specifically coming up against those sort of technical challenges with frames per second and overcoming such high-speed challenges.
Yeah. I never intended on having robots, and now I own 7
Now
robots.
you're half robotic.
But it just happens. You buy one, they start reproducing. I don't know. But it was all driven by creative, right? I wanted to do this with the camera really fast. Like, how do I do that? And once you learn what that level of control brings to a situation, you're like, oh, now I could do this. Now I could do that. Now I could do the same pass, switch out the pack, and like I could do the Canadian version. I could, speaking to the same thing you're just talking about, versioning is huge. Like PepsiCo, one of our biggest clients, it's around the whole world, right? They have to make a version for every country. So for us, the robotics was part of our workflow already. So once we came into the world of virtual production IC VFX, they already give us our 3D data. I didn't need a tracking system. It already feeds right into Unreal. We're already using that for previs for clients. We're already doing that. Now it's like, oh wait, I could actually just make that final pixel, and I could actually use that not just in previs. And when I don't know how many people work with brands, but getting sign off on almost everything before a shoot is so huge. Like, we literally have had edits where we show them the previs, we go back and forth on the previs, we shoot the previs, and the edit looks just like the previs, right? And like on the day of the shoot, they're like, this is the easiest shoot we've ever been on. And it's because you pre-think it, you get sign off, you get alignment. And I think these tools aren't just good for producing great creative solutions, but it's also a way to get clients that don't understand conceptual ideas and give them something to look at that's pretty close to it, and then deliver that.
And I think that sort of links in back to Kubrick with the AI creation, I think, with that engine. Can you explain a little bit more, Chris, about how partnerships with tech like ROE Visual have helped simplify that virtual production workflow?
Well, for us, partnerships with technology companies are essential because without that close connection, we're not as connected to the users. And so through relationships with ROE, Disguise, Pixera, and other partners, like, we get to learn what kind of tools they need and what works best in order to remove the pain points in the production process. So at Kubrick, we're all about trying to streamline the process of concepting, presenting to the client, creating environmental backgrounds, and then delivering on stage. And so if we can reduce that by even like a few hours or days, when you're doing projects which are costing multi-million dollars a day, then we're helping save not only the project budget, but we're actually adding time to the creative process, which is the important bit, which is like, does it look good? And if you want to make changes, you need that extra time just to make that tweak, to make it better than it might have been before. And so that relationship with us isn't just through the technology companies, but it's also with the users, the directors, the creatives, and the technical operators. And often they're the ones who know the workspace the best. And so, yeah, they're the relationships that are important to any company, particularly to Kubrick.
I do have a bit of a side question. I've heard a couple of rumours about the background of the naming of Kubrick. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, Kubrick is like, it's an homage to Stanley Kubrick because he's one of our favourite film directors, and he's left a lasting mark on the history of filmmaking, perhaps never to be beaten in some contexts. And so, yeah, we're doffing our cap to him, but also, you know, the concept of a cue in film and bricks, you know, we're building stuff, and we're trying to build a future, and we're trying to build it together with our partners, and that's the name.
Amazing. And a bit of a side question for you, Lewis. I might have read that you've won a Guinness World Book record. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I have two.
Oh, you have
well,
two?
I'm on three, but I have two. So I did the world's first narrative VR series with Doug Lyman, the guy who did Born Identity, and then the world's first over-air 5G broadcast at 4K for the Super Bowl, the one where the Bird team played the Patriot. The other one with I'm not clearly that good at that.
He's obviously a sports guy.
He seems.
I love hockey. So we did that, and then I've worked on one of the deepest dives, like as a support team member for that. I've generally built a career and a life out of, I guess, some sort of dopamine-seeking behavior, where looking at working with really difficult technology. I mean, I remember shooting when you were talking. I was like having flashbacks to shooting with Cooper controls back in the day because I couldn't afford a proper motion control rig, and just like, where do I find an MS-DOS like floppy disk right now? What am I gonna do? And sort of figuring out it was so. We did a whole David Yurman campaign where we're shooting these product shots. J-Lo's in the background, and I'm using this rig from literally. For those that don't know, Cooper Control is Lucasfilm made it for Star Wars. And they had a yard sale in 2001 when they went bankrupt, and you could go and buy their gear for nothing. And so I bought a bunch of their Cooper controls and was a Cooper control vendor with the rig from Indiana Jones, shooting a lot of product shots. And you'd use this rickety old thing from like the 70s doing it, and it was incredibly painful. It was incredibly slow and really, really difficult. And I'm sitting here on this stage and, you know, fidgeting, and I'm noticing that our marks aren't tape. Our marks are white LEDs. So somebody's previs this talk. And I think that opportunity for creativity, locking in clients, is where I think this technology starts to get us to as we move faster and faster and faster. I think the other bit is like the amount of money we've saved with this. When you start looking at how getting creatives early into the process to understand what it feels to be in the shot, using XR to actually visualize the physicality of things. We did a shoot recently with Shaq, who's respectfully abnormally tall, and we realized all of our production design was not to scale. And so, like, when you design a set for somebody who's of average height, and this man comes in and just like
giant.
All the things you wear, like he's not in the shot anymore with the product. The countertop's not tall enough, and so we used XR for that. And had we not had XR systems for a lot of those sort of shoots, it would have been impossible to scale. I think that opportunity, I mean, and we haven't hit on this yet. I might be jumping ahead. No. But the thing that I think is kind of fun, and this, I'm not saying this technology isn't expensive, but when you start using it at scale, I remember there was like in 2018, everybody bought an LED wall and then like left it off for a little while, and then the pandemic hit and everybody realized, oh my God, those things that were on tour, we could use them for everything. And the economics of it get really good if you're churning productions through, particularly if you're using robotics.
I do believe that as an owner of a video rental company.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of hoping that it's all going to work out.
Yeah. And you get into this space where like you can churn through. If you have robotic moves, you program your control to do 50 product shots, you walk off, have a coffee, come back, 50 product shots are done with 50 different backgrounds rather than have 50 different set pieces going on. That's where it gets really meaningful for commercial broadcast production.
And I think cost efficiencies in process from that as well. I suppose coming on to the kind of last question, I wanted each of you to take a sort of bit of time and answer this. So looking forward into the future, I think we can all agree that XR and AI are sort of changing and reshaping the advertising and broadcast industry. How do you think the sort of more traditional broadcasters and content creators can use this technology to meet the sort of ever-changing audiences while still keeping that cost efficiency? And I suppose alongside with that, what do you find that's exciting you about the future of this industry? Chris, do you want to go first?
Okay, that's a pretty big question.
I know. If you could answer it in 35 seconds, 'cause we're running out of time,
kind of got it might be 40, but no, I've got a theory that in the past, content was owned by the studios, Warner, Disney, and then it evolved into it was owned by the broadcasters, NBC, BBC, etc. And now it's owned by the streaming stations, Netflix, Amazon, Apple. However, I think the future, whilst this won't change, they'll still be around and they're going to have premium requirements. I think there's a big opening for the creative economy. So you're everyone from Mr. Beast downwards, and Mr. Beast is a powerhouse in terms of revenue stream, content creation, and they're going to need tools which are portable, effective, cost effective, easy to use, and there's going to be many, many more of them around than there are the previously described people. So that's my vision of the future.
Thank you. Steve?
All right. So, I think, to me, the tools keep getting better, right? Like, I think, if I think back at motion control, when I started using motion control on robots, it was not that easy, but way easier than Cooper and going back another 10 years, right? And I think, virtual production is reaching kind of mass adoption phase where it's not impossible to do with a small team of people. Like our studio, we have one guy that does almost all the wall stuff minus the world building itself. And it's like, you could have a really small team, and speaking to what you're saying, like I think future content could be done with a really smart, small team of people, and you could concentrate more on the creative because the technical stuff is just getting so much easier. Like I think with LED lights and these beautiful panels and the color and everything, like image-based lighting, all that comes together to, empower the creator to create and push the boundaries of creativity instead of spending half the day troubleshooting technical things like, oh, the lighting's not right and this and that and this, that's not built right. And the more those tools are flexible and they really empower and allow us to really just push the edge of creativity, I think more and more people that just have great ideas are going to rise to the top. And I think AI, that speaks to AI as well, right? Like you could prompt it, yes, but what do you want to prompt it? Is that the right thing? I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, for better or worse, I've worked with creatives at agencies that aren't that creative, and I think those people aren't going to survive in the future. I think, you really need to have a vision and have a purpose, and I think all this technology is just going to empower that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, so my beats on this, look, if it's not personalized, it's broken. If it's not interactive, it's broken. This time next year, every broadcaster in this room, God willing, will be competing against GTA 6 for attention. You have to realize the level of media competition that we have for brands, for companies, for content is at that level. That's the attention we're competing against. And to your point about Mr. Beast, the YouTube creator economy is twice the size financially of Netflix. And so if we're not getting into content that is for every single broadcaster, every single person, if we're not getting there sooner rather than later, whether it is for a brand, whether it is for a content show, it's just going to feel kind of weird and old and static. And so the opportunity, whether it is with XR, with AI, is to use tools like and technology pieces like this. I get really excited about like how we're going to use large format cameras to break up into individual 1080 breakouts for every single screen. And so you're going to use prismatic mirrors. And we used to do this back in the day where you're going to put prisms in front of the camera to shoot 8 different shots with one camera frame, break them out, and do all sorts of different things. to get hyper personalized content very, very quickly. And if you're not thinking about how you're going to do that, you're going to probably get destroyed. And so the opportunity here is to scale.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. I just wanted to thank everybody for taking their time and listening. If you want to find out any more about our 3 inspiring panelists, please stay on the stand and have a chat with them after. And just to confirm, we had Lewis Smithingham from Monks, the wonderful Chris Bird from Kubrick, and Steve Giralt from The Garage. We wanted to thank you so much and enjoy the rest of IBC.
Thank you, everybody.